people to switch over. You can be mad at me right now. I'm sorry. I did test what I just did, and it didn't do that last week. So,
Yeah,
okay.
but I mean, it just keeps happening though. It's like
This is on right now.
this is gonna work and everything's fine, Jaimie. But then it's like it doesn't, and it's like once would be like, oh, okay, just have it once. But now it's like over and over, you know.
Okay.
Jaimie is frustrated. Jaimie is so frustrated right now. You know when you're like trying to do something, you're trying to do a good job of it, but like it's just like everything is just not working.
Okay.
So frustrated right now. Okay, anyway, I'm back. I'm just gonna wait a few minutes for people to come back. We've had user-generated technical difficulties, and yeah. Anyway, when part of the, I was mentioning earlier that we're gonna get faster internet in a week or two. I'm gonna get the internet at my house. What happened? I actually don't know. You'd have to ask someone else who was pushing buttons and doing things and totally disconnected us and said it should have worked, but it didn't, whatever it was. Anyway, I'm gonna get internet at my house so I can actually do these without having the constant technical difficulties, which are just driving me insane. I hate doing a terrible job of things. Yeah, I really hate doing a terrible job of things, and I feel like these lives have been so low quality in terms of so many things that could be solved, and I'm so frustrated about it. So I think I'm just gonna start doing it myself, and maybe I won't do one next week, and just once I get the internet at my house, then I can just take care of it myself. Anyway, what were we talking about? Oh God, I'm so frustrated. Can we just wash the frustration away and just be like everything is fine? Yeah, I don't have Starlink. There's no Starlink here. I don't know what it is with Starlink. Okay, I guess everything everything has worked fine now. Hey, Kirkin. Hey, Kirkin. Can you get me a drink of water?
I can't pour water.
No, I need a drink of water. Just bring it upstairs. Get someone to get it and bring it upstairs. Yes, technical stuff happens, but it keeps happening. It's so frustrating for me because I mean, this is why I don't like working with anyone. It's because, hey, can I have a drink of water? Yes. Yeah, that's my I'm annoyed voice. So yeah, I mean, it seems like every time I try to do something with another person, I shouldn't say every time. It's so frustrating that when I try to do things with another person and they just are not holding up their end of the thing, you know? Anyway. Ooh, thanks. I still have no timestamps here in live chat. Anyone? I actually do have timestamps. Are the timestamps important? I don't know. I don't really pay attention to them, except now that you just said that, I'm noticing them. What are you eating for lunch today? I have no idea what we're eating for lunch today. What was I talking about? We were talking about lumber mills and how, yeah, I'm going to build a swing blade lumber mill and not a bandsaw one because the bandsaw ones are a pain in the butt. Deshana did spill the milk, yes. And I've gotten frustrated.
What milk?
And I think she's not coming back now. Hi, hey, Jaimie. Been watching you for forever, man. Like way before giant robot days. Whoa, that is forever. I'm a game developer and your game is awesome. I'm amazed at all the features you got in there. Oh, that's cool. I'm working on a new game, and I was actually thinking about trying to work with someone on, you know, not in any kind of like, this is work, but like in a fun way, you know, because I have a whole bunch of characters for this new video game that I want to program into it and like make it. The new video game I want to make into like a sort of an open-ended, like an open world, unending kind of thing. You know, like one of those games where I just continually update it and make the world a little bigger every update. And I guess it's because I've played this game called Andor's Trail, which is like an open source thing that a lot of people kind of chip in and help work on this game. And you know, it's just this, you know, every time they update it, it's just got another chunk of the world that you get to explore. And I don't spend a lot of time planning or anything, but every once in a while I'll get it out and be like, ooh, what else? What other new parts of the world are in here? It's kind of cool when it's just this continually growing world, and you know, there's things you can do in different towns and stuff. I want to make something a little bit like that, but you know, like still going with the top view, the 3D thing where you run around in robots and stuff. Oh my gosh, Jaimie, forget about Starlink. It's almost 100 watts continuous. Did you know that Starlink is like 100 watts? Forget that. Yeah, if it uses that much energy, totally forget it. I'm not doing that ever. Let's see, what have we got here? Your Together intro is hilarious, by the way. I just watched it briefly while the live cut. Our Together intro. Is that when we were, oh, right. Yes, when I was sitting behind Deshana, right. Don't fire Dee as co-host just because she tapped the wrong button. Yeah, it's not. Right. It's always just one thing. It's just one thing. Okay, here's a question. Everything is fine with me and Deshana. I'm just frustrated and everything's fine. Okay, don't worry about it. Question. For the mill, you selected a 12-inch blade, implying about a 5-inch max cut. Why? Well, it's a 5-inch on each side because you can go down one side and come back the other side. So it's a 10-inch board you can make. But why not a 16-inch blade? Well, I want to make it so I can put a 16-inch blade on it. But a 12-inch blade is much easier to get, and I don't want to have to. I don't want to make a mill that's going to have all these specialized parts that are hard to find. Like I like building things with parts that are easy to find, and for the most part, like a 10-inch board is going to be plenty. It'll be plenty of width for what I'm doing. It's really nice to have like 2-foot wide boards, but it's not that big a deal, you know. And that's also the reason why I don't want to use like a blade that's made for a swing mill, because okay, when you have a lumber mill that's a swing blade lumber mill, you know, it's not a thing like this, and out the bottom there's going to be like a little, like if you use a regular saw blade, there's going to be like a nut or whatever on the bottom of here, which means it's going to be in the way. So if you can't just cut a board off and then move over and cut a board off. You have to like cut and then. So if you cut, wait. Yeah. So this is all wood down here in that space. So if you cut a board out here, you can't just continue moving over and do a cut right here, because that's going to get in the way and hit it. So you actually have to move the blade up 1/2 inch or whatever, and then you can cut there. But I'm fine with that. In the one I made before, I did that, and that's exactly what I did. I just cut a board, then moved up 1/2 inch, cut another board, moved up 1/2 inch. And if you buy blades that are made for a swing mill, lumber mill, you won't have this nut sticking down, because you'll have a few holes in the blade that bolt into a thing above it. And the holes will be, what are they called? Countersunk holes. so your screws won't be sticking out the bottom at all. But then you have to buy the special blades for that, and they cost more. So I'm just going to go with the regular blade that's cheaper and easier to get, and that's fine. 16-inch 5/16 circular saw blades are common. Well, maybe where you are, but not where I am. I cannot get a 16-inch blade here. I can order one, but I would like to have the option to also buy one. That said, I do also want to make my lumber mill able to work with a 16-inch blade. So, but I'm gonna plan all the details around a 12-inch blade. Is the sawmill intended to be portable or a fixed location? Well, it'll be somewhat portable. I don't want it to be like locked in a place forever, but I also don't need it to be like something I can just take into the jungle and use wherever. It'll need electricity. So, how you doing, Deshana?
I'm good.
You want to come over?
Yeah, sure.
Oh yeah, you should come over.
Great.
So I don't want a lumber mill that's going to be like concreted in a spot. Like I want to be able to move it if around the island, or if I want to move it to another island or something. I want to be able to get it onto a boat and move it somewhere and set it up there. But yeah, I don't need it to be portable. Like if I really just need to cut a couple boards in the middle of the jungle or something, I'll just take a chainsaw. Look, Starlink takes almost 100 watts continuous.
Oh my
Did you
God,
know
that's crazy. I can't believe it.
You're feeling weird because I was upset. Your wash-through PVC bearings might serve a two-ended conveyor belt for dredging. Actually, I've thought about doing that. I wasn't... Okay, so this comes to a thing. I was talking about this once. Let me draw a thing. Okay, so they're talking about making a conveyor belt with some PVC bearings that are loose and open. You can just dump water in them and mud can get in them and it'll fall out and stuff. And I was thinking about making a thing like this that's powered at one end with a solar panel, not to dredge on its own, but so I could get in the water, scoop buckets out and put them on it, and then it would put the stuff where I need it to go. Because having some automatic machinery moving muck means it has to know where the muck is, and it gets a lot more complicated. What's the word? I shouldn't say easier, but it's much more efficient for me to just get in the water and scoop the muck rather than build something that's going to be complicated that can figure out where the muck is. Now, if I was dredging like huge amounts of something, then it might be worth, getting more involved in building stuff like that. But that's the decision process in a lot of things I do. Like, it's always in a big enough situation, it's always going to be more efficient to build a machine to do something. But on a smaller scale thing, like when you're living off grid and doing a lot of like small things by yourself, often it's more efficient to just do it by yourself with your own muscles and stuff. What else we got here? Yeah. William says, go to the store right now and buy an off-the-shelf 16-inch blade. You're not going to find one. Yeah, I can't find one at the store here. I'd have to order it for sure. Typically, swing blade saws cut the horizontal on the first pass and the vertical on the return pass. It doesn't matter. You can do it either way. I know. You could cut from both sides, but only for one board in the middle of the log. I'm not sure what they're trying to say there, but all right, he's talking about what I was saying with the swing mill blade. You can cut down one side of the board and move over and cut down the other side, and you can get a 10-inch board. So you just cut the vertical sides to 10 inches, and then you can cut them. And it doesn't have to be in the middle of the board, and it doesn't mean that you have to have like a 10-inch block and you waste all the rest of the wood. You can still cut like boards out of the sides of the log or whatever. If you have a big enough log, I mean, don't limit yourself purposely. Don't set up you can't do this things in your head for no reason. They've halved wattage demands for Starlink. 60 max, 12 and 40 volt DC is available now too. Well, it's just too much energy. I don't want to have like a 60 watt thing going all the time. That's ridiculous. Like, what do we have right now? I mean, it hardly uses anything, like less than 10 watts. Could you modify an old radial arm saw? If I had an old radial arm saw, maybe I would, but I don't. Oh, Tomatoes is here. He was out in the shop. Hey, Jaimie, were you ever able to get your methane collector, aka poop chamber, working? I never saw any follow-up on that. Well, I don't know. It might be working. I have to connect a pipe to it to see if it's working.
Could be.
People ask me that a lot. I'm not gonna read that.
I don't even know what that means.
Yeah, I don't know what that means either. Yeah, who knows?
So you're firing me?
Yeah, you're fired.
Okay.
Hey, get back here. Get back to work.
So I do a terrible job and I'm fired.
This is Parker. You're fired. Get in here. Gibbs, you're fired. Do your job. Come on. What are you doing?
I just want to make sure that I'm clear that I do a terrible job.
Hey. Oh God. Are you getting all serious on me? Yes, you do a terrible job. Now do it. Do a terrible job. Come on, go. What do you got? You have some questions?
Stop touching things.
Wait, you can touch things. Why can't I touch things?
Because her screen is cracked and you're a little aggressive with it. Sorry. I ordered her a new one, but it's not here yet. Silver Fox wants to know, and I have no idea what this is, what if you used a facing mill?
I have no idea what that is either.
Could somebody Google search or let us know what a facing mill is?
Someone here probably knows. Someone was talking about lumber mills, so like they're an expert.
Can you stay on this side of the house, please?
I don't need to cut any faces off.
I want a book.
Like if
are you getting crayons?
Yeah.
oh, what else you got
Okay.
there?
What
Two.
if instead of rollers you used sprockets? Again, I have no idea what
Well,
I'm
is this-
asking you.
I'm thinking, is this the rollers to move? Well,
You could then have machine chain as the track. This would prevent the saw head from being able to slip, and it takes away some of the jerkiness of moving it with human power. There's a channel called Topper Machine Shop. He did something very similar, but used wire with multiple wraps around the main spindle. So turning on the saw head also activated the feed for the log and would retract using the same system, hitting a limit
yes.
switch and changing directions.
I don't think I was thinking about making a thing that will pull the saw through. I don't want to just change directions. I don't want that much automation though. I want at the end of every cut, I want to have to be there and look at it and make sure everything's going okay.
It further
But
says
I don't think I want to do sprockets for wheels though. I want to just do normal wheels.
okay, so I
and
don't
have
mean
like
to
a-
cut in, but what the is a sprocket?
Sprockets is a gear.
It makes me think of the
It's a gear.
Jetsons.
Spacely sprockets. Yeah. So I guess this is talking about like having chain along the thing and then sprockets rolling to move the whole lumber mill
I don't
table
understand.
thing. It doesn't matter. But yeah, I don't want to drive it that way. Because like if dirt gets in there, I don't know, it just sounds like it's more complicated than it needs to be. Like I just want it on wheels and on a pipe where sawdust and dirt and stuff can fall off easily and be brushed off easily as it's going by. And then to move the thing, I think I would rather have like a steel cable that's on a really slow winch, like pulling itself through. But I wasn't going to worry about the automated movement of the thing until after I got it working well.
Cool.
Like first I just
So
want to
are you going to automate it at some point?
probably, but like I just want it like one step at a time, you know. Like I want the thing to work really well, just pushing it through, and then I can worry about automating it.
I see.
But what I was thinking was, I just wanted to just pull itself through, not reverse. I don't want it to like do too much, because the thing is like, when you set up things to do too much stuff like that,
stuff breaks.
Yeah, if something goes wrong in the middle of it and this stupid machine just keeps trying to go, it can like wreck stuff. And then you have to do all kinds of like, redundant things to make sure it doesn't screw it. I'd rather just pay attention now and then.
What about 2 blades with spacers the width of the boards?
Well, then you just need more power. I'm just going to go with 1 blade.
Okay.
One cut at a time.
How about a single guide?
I did think about, on that, I did think about making a mill that is like, sort of like a big bow saw thing, like 2 things like this, and it'll have a bunch of blades in it, and it just goes, and it very, very slowly moves a log through.
So
and
is it like,
it would take like an hour and a half to cut a whole log.
Saw? Like, is that what you're saying?
You mean like this?
Yeah.
You gotta put your hands so you can see.
Sorry, is it like a saw?
No, it'd be more like a saw, but like several blades. And it would not be a high-powered thing. It would just like, it would be the kind of thing where you put a log there.
And
it's
5 hours
like,
later you come back.
Yeah, or whatever. It's just like, okay, go.
Right.
And it just cuts through the log. Just like millimeter at a time.
Wouldn't that be more like...
No, it's gotta, every time the saw cuts, it's only gonna cut like a millimeter or so,
Got it. How about a single guide that clamps to the log in situ? What is situ?
In the situation?
Oh, okay.
In situ? That's too fancy
Then
words
an
for me.
adjustable carriage cutter that runs along it. Thanks, by the way.
No, I don't want to do that.
Okay.
Because then you have to, I don't want to have a thing that I have to attach to the log all the time. Plus, if you attach, was it attaching to the log?
Yeah, it says clamps to the log.
Yeah, I don't want things clamping to the log because it's going to get in the way of cutting it. What happens when I cut the log all up? Then I'm clamping to like just this little bit on the bottom that's left to cut. Like the smaller the log gets, the harder it's going to be to clamp on it. No, I'd rather just have like a big thing. The log can go there and this thing drives through. Now what he's talking about, and the other problem with that is if you just have like one tube thing, whatever, for your saw to go on, it's much easier for that to get damaged or bent or out of alignment or whatever. I just want two tracks, like a train track, and the thing drives on it. Nice wide thing that it'll make it very stable to drive the saw blade through the log.
Have you seen the YouTube channel?
I have not.
Way Out West?
No.
Because apparently he runs a homemade lumber mill, and it's a bandsaw mill, and he does a few things that are kind of neat, like he moves the logs on his railway system while the saw is stationary. And anyway, this viewer thought that you might see a few cool ideas there. Anyway, keep being super awesome.
Yes. Okay. So there are some problems with moving the log instead of the saw. So the log weighs way, way more than a saw.
Oh, wait, can I ask the question about that first? Oh, please, because the question's so good.
Go ahead.
Jaimie, why rotate the blade when you can
that's
more
going to be a
easily
separate question.
Rotate the log?
That's going to be the next question. Okay, say you've got a track, like a train track. It's perfectly straight, so you can run it through your saw.
Mm-hmm.
If anything gets cut, your log is going to have so much inertia moving, even though you're moving it slow. If it gets stuck or anything, it's going to like damage things. But the saw weighs so much less that if you're going through and somehow it hits something or the blade gets stuck or whatever, the saw doesn't weigh enough that it's going to like crash, like wreck itself, right?
Right.
Because if you have like a 1,400-pound log and it's moving very, very slowly, you can't stop it instantly. So if it hits something on the edge of, or the blade gets stuck or whatever, it's going to keep moving for a second and bend things or whatever. Yeah. But if you move the lighter part, the saw, then if it hits something, it's going to be much safer and less likely to damage itself. Okay, now
so
rotating the log
why
itself.
rotate the blade when you can more easily rotate the log?
Well, the blade and the The blade and the motor thing weighs 100 pounds, less than that probably, and I can permanently mount it on a swivel thing that makes it very easy to rotate. Right? The log, what, 500 pounds, 1,000 pounds, and the log is not uniform thickness, which means first it's a lot harder to rotate it, and as I rotate it, the log is going to move up and down. Unless I mount it like on some lathe thing where it's going to rotate perfectly, which would be ridiculous. Because then as you cut it, you'd be cutting into the lathe ends. Like you're just rolling the log as it's sitting on something. It's gonna move it, and you're gonna end up cutting not straight lines or not lined up lines. Right?
Right.
Because if you have a perfect cylinder, sure you could rotate it, and you're gonna cut like still straight. But the log isn't going to be perfectly cylindrical.
I like the ending of Joe Camel's response to this person, and that was
Yeah.
basically moving the log is a waste of time when you could be cutting the boards you want.
That is true, yes. Especially when you had to move the log all the way to the lumber mill. It's like, okay, I've moved the log enough. Now I get the log here. Now I don't have to move it anymore.
What about PVC rails in
Actually,
concrete?
wait, that is also another thing I like about the swing blade lumber mill versus a bandsaw. The bandsaw, you can only cut horizontals, which means you are going to have to turn the log to cut, the other sides. But with the swing blade mill, once you get the log in place, that is it. You don't have to move it anymore. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So PVC rails set in concrete?
Well, I don't want PVC rails because they would degrade in the sun eventually. That also, I'm not sure. Well, anyway, it doesn't matter. I don't want to set it in concrete because I want the thing to be movable.
Well,
I want to be able to move it.
Speaking of that, because I think about that every now and then when I'm driving in my boat, about PVC and degradation from solar whatever, radiation or whatever it is.
Yeah.
How long does that take?
I don't know.
Like, is it a matter of months, or is it like
Probably years.
years, decades?
Years, not decades.
Because I think about that with the house.
It depends how much time it's in the sun, how intense the sun is, how thick your plastic is.
Is that where it's like number 40 or number like 80 or something, like
Yeah.
on the cool.
Yeah, the wall thickness.
Wall thickness.
Yeah, the wall thickness.
Cool. So Max Sid 1 would like to know, is that a banana in your ear?
That was
Did
a
you
banana in my
say,
ear.
is that a bandana, my dear?
I did not say there's a banana in my ear.
Are
I
you-
might have though.
Are you looking for smooth as a baby's bottom grade saw cut?
Yeah, I actually want them to come out like greased, so I'm gonna have a little paintbrush that will like paint.
What
paint
about
baby-
diaper rash
No,
cream?
it'll paint baby oil on. Oh yeah, I can put some diaper rash on my boards, then it will smell like a baby's
Smooth as baby's butt.
like a baby's diapered bum.
Yeah, you might want to wipe them with baby wipes first.
Well, if I have the lumber mill going and it has some talcum powder that shakes as the boards are going
You should
through.
get the lilac scented one. It'll make it sleepy.
Yeah, then
It'll
I can
settle the boards
then
down
I
a
could
lot.
get boards that come out and they're just like
Board.
they're like babies.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Board.
baby's bums.
Maybe a little baby cologne.
Although if I really want it to be like a baby's bum, I could just poo on the boards.
But you'd have to shape them a bit, wouldn't you? Because babies' bums are not really
I don't really want
straight.
boards with poo on them,
Yeah.
like baby poo. No, I don't want any poo on it. Really, preferably
So
no poo.
probably not smooth as baby bottom.
Oh, we were just talking about smooth. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay. With a 12-inch blade, isn't that going to be limiting with attempting to cut large logs?
I already answered this.
Is that when you fired
Yes,
me?
it was when I fired it.
Okay.
Yes, whatever size blade you have, you are limited to that size cut. Bandsaw, swing blade, whatever it is, whatever size your thing is, will limit your size that you're cutting.
Dan N responded to this guy's question for you
Unless you have a mega laser beam.
and said no, they swing for a 90-degree cut, and he might be limited to an 8-inch by 4-inch board, but in 3 passes he could cut 2-inch by 4-inch boards.
I think they were saying limited by the bigger size, not the smaller size.
Yeah, maybe.
But yeah, with a 12-inch blade, at least the way I made the one before, I could cut a 10-inch board, with a bit of clearance.
Jean-Paul Simon says, or Simon says, you might want to look up Lucas sawmills. They use the same design but with a 14-inch blade. You could run down the length of the log with the blade vertical and then flip a lever and it is reoriented horizontally. You cannot cut large live edge slabs, but for making dimensional lumber, it's much faster.
So he's basically telling me to make a swing blade mill, which is what I was saying I wanted to make. Right?
It says it's much faster than a traditional bandsaw mill, strictly because you're cutting in both directions.
I don't know about that. Like a bandsaw mill, when it's running good, like they'll both cut fast. I don't know. That's kind of a pointless argument.
Yeah, I think it was just making that suggestion. Moving along. So this is the question I've been dying to ask
What
you.
is it?
This was
Is
commented.
anyone asking questions right now? What if we're just ignoring everyone?
No, we're not.
Look, what if someone has something to say?
Oh.
We
I
ask
wonder why it
people.
wasn't post. It usually tells me that there's something. Oh.
Just grow flat, tall trees, no mill required. Yeah.
Oh no, square ones like the watermelons.
Yeah.
We just put them in a form. Jaimie, we could just put them in a form and they'll grow square, perfectly square. And the form could slowly shave off the bark as it goes up.
Okay.
Anyway, so this is the question I've been dying to ask you.
Yeah, go.
You look like you're thinking about something else
Go
though,
for it.
so what's up?
Oh my god. What is the question?
This was a comment that was left on your zombie chopper video, and it was left by Elavid. Anyway, I thought.
I like how you pronounce people's names.
I know, I like to mutilate them because it's funny. I thought there is a high tide every 12 hours approximately, but it seems unimaginable that I, desert dweller, would know more about the tides than Jaimie, who swims in the ocean every day. Is there something I'm missing?
Well, you've done some research on this recently.
I have.
And,
Ben Hartley and I did some research yesterday, actually.
and you found that in some places
There's
no tide.
No tide. And
Other places there's like six up and downs throughout the day.
One place specifically, it's because it's located in between a river or something that goes out and the ocean, and it's called Woodhole something. And apparently,
it's not Woods Hole.
Maybe.
It's not in Massachusetts. Maybe it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I'd have to look it up. But anyway, apparently where it's located, the two tides sometimes affect each other, so there's like a minimal tide, variation.
Well, you also get tide bounce. So like here, as the tide is like coming in, it'll like kind of get to the max and then kind of bounce down a little bit and then go back up. Because like the thing is, in reality, things don't work like.
You were right.
Yes, Woods Hole is.
Hi, Ben.
In Massachusetts, yeah. That's the Woods Hole they're talking about, right?
Yeah.
They do all kinds
That's
of
what we're talking about.
oceany stuff there. Anyway, like, think about if you had a big tub with rocks in it, and you dumped a bucket of water in it. The water is not just going to like go in some smooth thing. It's going to hit the rocks and bounce around and make all this different stuff, right? So, like the ocean water throughout the world will move like not just based on like the direct effects of the moon's pulling on it and the sun's pulling on it. It'll also be bouncing off land and off its own waves and stuff, and there'll be all these
Did you know that there are actually some places, Ben and I also found this out. Ben and I like to do research together. Anyway, apparently there's some places where the sun has no effect on the tide and other places where the moon has no effect on the tide, but there is not a single place where both have no effect.
Yeah. Here it's like the high tide roughly changes by like 40-ish minutes every day. Like it gets later by 40 minutes every day. And every day it's either getting bigger or smaller. So sometimes we'll get just a really small tide up and down, and then the next day it'll be a little more, and then a little more, and then a little more. And then a few weeks later we get to the maximum tide where it's like, ooh. And this whole time, the time of the tide is changing by something like 40 minutes later every day. So it's constantly changing. And there's two high tides every day.
Oh, I looked
but
that up.
sometimes they overlap.
I looked that up, and it seems the average is between 11 to 13 hours between the two high tides, roughly.
Right.
I'm not all the time, but like the average seems to be that, which I thought was interesting. Hold on one second. Hey, Ben, will you post the questions that we were talking about yesterday? Because I can't get into my app to look them up.
If you look at the
two that we worked on.
If you look at the graph of the tides, it's just like all over the place.
Yeah, it was crazy. And I looked at the tide of the Woods Hole one, and it was like this. It was like a little roller coaster.
Yeah.
It was pretty crazy. So somebody would like to, Classic Dude Mike would like to know if we celebrate Festivus instead of Christmas. It seems Festivus would fit.
Festivus?
Festivus.
Okay. No, we don't. I don't know. I don't know what Festivus is.
It's Festivus, I know.
Oh, have you seen that Seinfeld episode?
I saw part of it. Not. I don't remember all of it.
I've only seen
I have a memory of it.
I've seen like 4 Seinfeld episodes.
I used to watch them all the time because I like.
No soup for you.
Yeah, I liked Elaine. She was pretty funny.
Yeah.
So I remembered I wanted to be like her when I was like 12.
I remember there was an episode where Jerry couldn't remember the name of his girlfriend, but he remembered it. Her name rhymed with a female body part. and at one point she was storming out and said, "You don't even remember my name!" And he said, "Mulva?" Dolores. Oh, Dolores Clitoris. Ah. Yeah.
Vulva.
Mulva, which rhymes with vulva, yes. Which was like,
who named somebody Mulva?
But that's like all the exposure I had for that show. I saw a few episodes.
Rolfie would like to know, how are you guys doing?
Oh God. Every day we want to strangle each other.
I don't think you meant.
Oh, you mean how is everything going other than marvelous.
Oh my God, we both just made the same stupid face.
I know, I got that face from you just then.
Questions.
Everything's so amazing.
Good. Thank you. Ben, I'm gonna ask you those in a minute. Don't
what?
Don't read those questions.
Okay.
Okay.
Can I do this face right now?
Jimmy Freeman would like to know what's going on, hero.
Dude, is that Gordon Freeman's older brother?
I think so, maybe.
Oh, Jimmy. Yeah, we've been playing Half-Life 2 a little bit with my kids. My kids love Half-Life 2. Well, they like Half-Life 1 more. And I gotta say, I like Half-Life 1 more too. Because it has
Russian.
In Half-Life 1, I have it in Russian, yes. Even not being able to understand what any of the people say, it has a much better storyline than all of Half-Life 2. Because like you do all this stuff. You send a rocket to outer space to get some communications going with some thing. You repair a reactor to get some teleport going so that you can get to the alien otherworld place, and you have to explore your way through this alien world and stop this brain monster. You do all kinds of weird stuff. But then in Half-Life 2, it's just kind of like fighting through some city with some soldiers and stuff.
Is we can't really see your shirt, and usually we can see it.
Oh, just go like this. It's because
you have to pull the screen.
Everyone doesn't have to see my shirt. It doesn't matter. Oh wow, now we're more on the thing.
Well, it just it frames it better too, because like I'm pretty sure all this shows up in the video.
Mm-hmm.
So,
okay, what's going on? If you stop talking, I'm just gonna start making faces at myself.
Okay, well I have to ask you the question now that I have. Hold on. Apparently, Rolfie wants your shirt.
You should make a Jaimo game. I want to make a Jaimo game.
How much electricity do you use per day?
Kilowatt hours, not much. I don't know. I have one 275 watt solar panel on my house, and that's all I use.
Okay, so Ben and I were talking about what kind of questions we could ask you that were more not necessarily philosophical, but less about building and more about life.
But all I know about is building. I don't want to build.
And one of the questions that we came up with was this one, which was starting an intentional community of like-minded people seems like a natural step in setting an example of the ABC principles and virtues. However, historically speaking, intentional communities seem prone to failure. Why do you think maintaining them is so hard?
Oh, God.
And would you agree with that failure thing?
Did you do any research on intentional communities failing?
We did.
Well, what's the word?
So
like just getting one started is like
hard.
The research, and then like getting past the first year is like ridiculous.
Well, so what they said was,
Yeah.
generally speaking, within the first year or two, if they don't continue, or not if they don't continue, but they
You mean
will
if they
fail.
make it?
Yeah, they'll fail.
Yeah.
If they get past, like if they get to the 5-year mark, though, generally speaking, they are successful, and that they're comparing
successful
them to,
often for a generation until
Right.
the original people who started it.
Sometimes even
Are
the second
gone.
generation
Yeah.
will be successful because they usually are born in
Right.
that system, so they learn about it. But
But at some
I
point,
can't right now, buddy. You have to take it to Aurora.
at
Okay?
some point, they
Take
often
it to Aurora. She'll
just
totally help you. Or Bellatrix.
lose the message.
Right,
Like
and
they don't teach their kids.
Right, and that's what we were
Like-
talking about this morning.
Yeah.
About which I
Well,
think is kind of important.
I think one of the problems with starting an intentional community is that okay, one of the problems that I've had is that there are a lot of people who want to join me as like followers, which means if I'm the leader, if I'm holding it together, as soon as I'm gone, the whole thing falls apart, which I don't want. So I would much rather try to find people who are also like putting forth the thing, you know, like doing the thing, not just doing it because I'm doing it or because, you know, I'm.
Well, doing it because it's something that resonates with their soul.
Yeah, I'm like I want to
Also-
start a community where it's like, I mean, I guess I've started the community, but I want people in the community who are independent of me also wanting to do the same kind of thing. And that doesn't mean they can't learn anything from me and I can't learn anything from them. Yeah, obviously we learn stuff from each other, but I don't want to be like the Jesus who has, you know, the disciples who follow around, and then as soon as I'm not there,
We
it's
kind
like,
of
well,
already
let's forget
are
it.
the Jesus. In 500 years.
Could you imagine
You're gonna
being?
be the
Could you imagine
Jesus.
being Jesus and like looking back and being like, what the? You know, people are like starting wars in my name and stuff,
Yeah.
and they're doing all. Look at these people. They're not even taking care of the planet. What is? I'm not coming back. Forget it. Forget it. That's why Jesus isn't coming back. You know, Jesus is not coming back because he's just like, oh, forget these people aren't doing it at all. What the? Forget it. It's not coming back. I'm going to do something else.
Yeah.
That's what Jesus is saying.
So
And I don't want to have
we
that
were
situation.
talking about the whys behind, you know, it not getting beyond like the second generation, like an intentional community.
Yeah.
And I was saying that I felt like it was because if you look at historically, like you can compare it to slavery, for example, and when you get so many generations removed from the event, so like people being
I think this
enslaved.
is going to be backwards.
Strawberry and one chocolate icing.
Well, with the slavery thing, you take people out of their community and then put them into slavery. After a couple generations, all they know is slavery,
Right,
and they can't go back.
right.
But
So-
with the intentional community, if that would mean that if you have a couple generations of people who've been in the community, they wouldn't know how to go back. But the problem is that they leave the community, not that they're stuck in it.
Right. And so what I was just saying
I'll show.
was, now I'm completely confused. This is exactly what happened earlier. You asked me why it was that we couldn't have the same kind of conversation that we were having earlier today. And it's because I get completely flustered and confused with what I'm talking about. And I had it all written down too.
What you were going to say to me, and then it's like, I
Yeah.
lost it.
Yeah. Okay, so just give me a second. My point is that the third generation, let's just say the third generation.
Yeah. So you got a generation of people who started the community,
created the thing, then
and
you
then
have
their
their
kids.
their descendants,
their kids,
and
and then their kids.
right? So we're at the third generation at this
Do what?
point, who may or may not have been involved with the creation of the community, depending on length
Well,
of
pretty
time.
much
They probably
definitely not.
weren't. So they have no concept of the amount of work or whatever, or
They're not
commitment. They're not
invested in it.
invested in the community. So they see the outside world as this unfamiliar treasure, you know, what's the word? Not treasure, but
Luxury stuff.
maybe not even luxury, but a different thing.
Oh,
And
new
maybe
thing.
maybe somehow they're
Grass is
dissatisfied
greener.
with something in there, and the grass is greener, you know, and they're presented with this thing that they're not familiar with, and so they get lured away.
Yeah.
And so I think that
Well,
that
there's-
could be why.
There's
they-
also tons of marketing, like encouraging people to move to cities, and like you see movies about like New York City, for example, and it's always so glamorous and amazing. Have you ever been to New York City? It is freaking dumb.
Yeah, it's pretty gross and hot.
Oh, I mean, most of the streets in New York City and Manhattan smell like urine and vomit, and there's just garbage everywhere. You know, they're not on Fifth Avenue, but you know, just like every other street. God, it's such a dump. And then people act like it's this utopia, but they're just shoving all the filth and the homeless people and all the broke people, whoever, they shove all that to the sides, whenever they get the cameras out and stuff.
So question is, have you seen or eaten jelly palm berries?
Well, wait, I don't want to get off the. Whoa, that's.
I know. That's
jelly
the only reason
palm
I
berries?
asked you, because I was like, wait, that sounds interesting.
That sounds amazing. That sounds sort of like dates.
Yeah.
I want to date palm, but we're too wet here, aren't we?
I might have to ask Ben to look this up.
I think
going back to what we were talking about.
Yeah, this is kind of related to what you were saying about, you have a generation that starts a Pindo palm. What's that?
Okay, we're gonna.
Okay, you have a generation that starts this intentional community, and this can happen with anything. It doesn't have to be specifically an intentional community. Like
business.
Like someone we know who is part of a kung fu dojo place.
Right.
She was saying they went through hundreds of people to get like a core group of half a dozen people who were serious about this kung fu stuff and were really doing it. But then her kung fu master guy from Japan died, and she said as soon as he died, it just started like going downhill.
And it's because they had that common.
Well, this is what I was talking about. That guy was the leader.
Right.
And he was making it all work, and that means as soon as that guy's gone, the whole thing falls apart.
Well, you need an apprentice.
No, I need to. I don't want to be the leader.
No,
this is a problem I keep having with people wanting to be in a community.
Period.
And it's not like a bad thing that people want to like follow. It's just it's not something that will be for the future.
Right.
But anyway, so what you were saying earlier was that you have the group of people who start a community, and then their kids are just in it. They didn't have to do any work to make it or anything. So they're just like, oh, I don't have. They don't appreciate it. It's just this thing that was there, and they just.
And maybe it doesn't have the same value to them because they never experienced. Well, and also because they never experienced the slavery. The alternative.
Right.
And so they think, oh, the grass is greener over there.
Yeah.
And then they get into that, and then they get sucked into that. And
I think one of the problems with that is, I think a lot of this comes down to the way people are raising their kids. They're not including them or informing them enough. So a lot of times, like, you'll have a community like that where they shelter the kids and don't let them be exposed to, the outside world. And then they get curious, like, what is this outside world that I've seen in these movies that it looks like it's pretty good. And then you get there, you go to New York City and find out, oh, it's all urine. Everyone's living in these little tiny apartments, and it kind of sucks, except for the 0.1% of the rich people who have these. I wouldn't even want to live in their horrible apartments, overlooking the park, because there's no space even then. But anyway, you gotta be like closely connected with your kids. You gotta raise your kids really well. And once you get something set up, like if you're setting up an intentional community, a lot of the way people think about it is like, we set it up and then it's there. Right. But it has to be a work in progress. Like the kids come along, there has to be something for them to do. It can't just be like
investing into the.
Well, it has to be. They have to have some role in it. You can't just set it up and it's like, okay, kids, here it is for you. Here's your life, laid out before you. You have no choices. It's just setting up another thing of slavery.
And somebody just actually said something about this here. Actually, I want to mention, because this is related. And I'm sure Anonymous was probably joking.
Tell them.
But that actually is a
valid
say
what
point.
He said. Tell the kids they'll get eaten by monsters
if they leave. So lying to them is definitely not. Like, that's not beneficial, because they're going to find out that that's not true. And
you have to, like, I always tell the kids, anytime they have questions about, the outside world, like, we'll watch movies every week. We have, movie nights. And they'll ask me questions about, why are these people doing this and that and whatever. And I'll explain, and I'll give them the truth about what is what is in the world outside. And anytime we experience, if we talk to people who are, kind of idiots, I'll explain this is people think this way normally in large cities. Like that's just the way they think. And then the kids are like, oh, I don't want anything to do with that.
Right.
But just in the community itself, you have to let the kids get involved. If you have an intentional community and you set up their lives for them, they're going to be bored, and it's just going to be like this slavery thing themselves. You have to let them be involved, and once the kids start getting to the age where they can do things, you have to let them kind of take over, not take over and take over your thing, but like take over the direction of what you're doing.
So do you think that it would be a good idea to help your kids build their own like house,
Yeah,
cabin,
totally.
but mostly let them do it?
Well, the thing is, like, I'm gonna help our kids.
Little buddy, I gotta turn this down.
Yeah,
it
dude,
can't be on the. It can't be on the live. You can go downstairs and turn it up if you'd like to. Okay?
Well, so I'm gonna help our kids make houses here, unless they, don't want to or whatever. But I mean, they seem like they want to build houses here, and yeah, I'm gonna help them with whatever they need help with. But I'm gonna get them involved as much as possible, and even on projects like around my property now. Like yesterday, we spent half the day digging and moving dirt and doing all this stuff together. And they get involved with that so that they are invested in what's going on there. And as we start getting plants that start producing fruit, they're like, hey, I helped plant that tree, and I did this to it and made this, and now we get the fruits. It's like my thing. It's not just a thing my dad did. It's like I'm involved in it. So I really want to make sure they stay involved.
So there's an interesting thing Ben is mentioning here
Well,
about.
I wanted to talk about this for a second.
Okay, we can talk about this one
Yeah,
first.
this is right after. So this guy says,
Industrialization looks impressive and cool,
Yes.
but you have to be a bit of a slave to participate.
And the other thing is, like, it looks better than it is a lot of times. Like, if you've never had a phone, and you see this phone, and it plays movies, and you can talk to someone in Japan.
Touch the screen, it does
and
stuff.
it's like, oh my god,
Mind blown.
It's like a jellyfish that does whatever I want. It's like. But the thing is, once you actually get it, you realize your life turns from doing things to just like. And like people who get sucked into this thing, they lose so much more than they gain. And you don't get that.
Seriously.
When you first see it from the outside. You have to actually participate in it, like get involved with it for a while, and then you realize how addictive and time wasting it is, and how useless it is to a large degree. Like the actual usable functions on a phone is maybe like 1% of what people do. Most of the time, people are using their phone or their tablet or whatever to just screw around and waste their life.
Right.
Yeah. What was the other thing?
So Ben was talking about how in the Amish communities they have the choice of becoming part of the community or not.
Rumspringa.
Once they reach a certain age, and like I think that's kind of cool.
Well, and that they're actually supposed to spend like a year out of the community,
Right.
just like going around in the world and getting drunk and stoned and whatever, and just seeing what it's like, and then they decide if they want to come back or if they want to leave.
Right.
But if they come back, they are back.
Right.
Yeah, I totally get that. I don't know if I'd want to do that.
I mean, I wouldn't stop.
But
I wouldn't stop.
no, I think my kids should do whatever they want. But I'm gonna
I
try
would
to
stop them doing like stupid things.
Yeah, but once they get old enough, like it's their choice. They choose whatever they want. But I think the important thing that people often miss is that as a parent, it's your job to teach them enough that when they get to the age where they can make their own decisions, that they make good decisions,
Right.
But that's something that's been given up today. People aren't raising kids anymore. That's why we have so many dumb people in the world. Like people aren't being taught anything by their parents. They're just kind of like, most parents today are like, okay, go off to school. You'll learn everything you need to learn, right? Yep, just go away and go to daycare, whatever. Go to your classes and your sports. And they have no real close participation with their kids.
So that's actually MJP has a good point here. Don't tell the kids what to do. Ask them.
Or just get them involved. Yeah. Well, I know it's sometimes you have to tell them what to do.
Right.
But yeah, it is always important to pay attention, and it's not even necessarily ask them. Like there are times when you ask them, but a lot of it is just listening. So even when you have to make them do stuff, when they're young, you basically control everything they do, and as they get older, you give them more freedom, as they become more able to do things. But even besides asking them, just pay attention, like hear what they're saying, because they'll say things that you don't have to ask about, and you might not even know what you should ask them, but they'll tell you if you're paying attention. Wait.
What did I miss?
You could take field trips to really terrible cities to let them see the costs of all this progress. Well, we don't go places very often, but when we were doing our residency garbage here, we had to go to twice. We had to go to major cities, and yeah, we went to Panama City, which is like all the way at the other end of the country.
So
and
far.
like, let's see, we got there at one night, slept in a place. The next morning, we like went out. Within like 2 hours, the kids are just like, oh, can we just go home? This is noisy. There's no space. It smells terrible. Just everything is horrible. And we like went to Pizza Hut and had pizza, and it was like, well, this is great, but like, I would rather just go home and have pizza, like, because there's space and I can go outside and walk around. Yeah,
So going back to the discussion we're having about slavery, and also like how many generations removed from it takes for people to become complacent in their own slavery, that they don't realize they're.
So this is going back to people who are in
the system.
Yeah.
So you have the first generation.
I think it's important to say that, because people will think that you're talking about like old timey slavery, but you're not just talking about that.
No, I'm
like
not just talking
today,
about that.
Most people are enslaved.
Yeah, I'm talking about like when people became chained to their desks, basically, because in order to survive
or just financially,
their environment, they had to work.
Yeah, everyone who owes money is not free.
Right.
And so I know, I mean, I had a student loan that sucked, and the whole time I paid it off like in less than a year, and I worked like crazy to pay it off, because I just felt like I had no control over my own life. Like, yeah, I was just a slave.
So you have that generation. So the generation that's in debt, works very hard, gets out of debt, is like, whew, has children.
Yeah.
Those children.
The really annoying thing is, like, my parents did that, got out of, oh no, they didn't get out of debt. My parents did. But anyway, so many parents, they tell their kids, go get a car, get your 5-year loan, get your mortgage, get your 30-year loan, student loan, get loans, credit. Here's credit cards, you can buy whatever you want. Like credit is pushed on people by their idiot parents. It's the dumbest thing ever.
Right. Totally.
Yeah, what are you talking about?
So you have some parents who go into debt, and they get out of debt, and you work very hard, they get out of debt, they have children.
Yeah.
They've at this point established their career and have made enough money where they have some kind of substantial savings, and they're able to maybe and they're able to provide their family with a reasonable lifestyle. But
possibly
the children,
on credit,
right? But the children have no idea the amount of work that went into gaining those things. So now they're just entitled to it, and they have no concept of freedom.
Yeah.
So how do you?
And
now they're scared of everything. They're scared of getting out of the system because the system is so safe.
It takes care of them.
So how do you encourage people to understand, like, to value their freedom over their safety?
Well, first you have to understand that it's not a choice between freedom and safety, because what people are doing is they're giving up their freedom so that their safety is in someone else's hands, which is so not safe. It just means someone else decides how safe you are. That's how most people live today, and it's easy to just outsource your responsibilities. It's easy to do that at any moment. Like, I just don't want to do it. Let someone else do it. It's definitely not safer. You're definitely not getting more safety by giving up your freedom.
Right, you're more vulnerable giving
Right.
up your freedom
And
and reliant.
but if someone is willing to give up their freedom for this illusion of safety, it's not even safety. It's just to put all the responsibility in someone else's hands. If someone's willing to do that, they're not gonna want to look at the truth of the situation, right? I mean,
Right. Well, like,
I don't know,
they're
how do you-
bombarded. I mean, they're being bombarded with, like, you can't go outside because you might die. You can't drive a car because you might die. You can't eat this kind of food because you might die.
Right.
If you don't go to the doctor, regularly and get all these shots, you might
well,
die.
and you have to live in the city or you'll die.
You're gonna die.
Yeah.
If you like grow your own food, you might die.
Well, this is like half
mean,
the point of doing all these YouTube videos for all these years, and even before that, I was doing stuff on a website and stuff, trying to show some example of, maybe you don't need to be afraid of everything all the time. Maybe you can try to do some things on your own, but it's like I'm like one little guy trying to say all that while there's this huge world of marketing that is just telling people you can't do anything. You just buy your stuff. Don't try to do anything yourself. It's dangerous and scary. You got to buy things, and you got to stay near the hospital all the time,
or you might die.
and you got to stay near the safety net, or you might die. Yeah, yeah. So I guess like a lot of I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to convince people that it's worth it to have freedom, because the argument against that is, well, if I have freedom, I'm free to fail. Yeah, you're free to fail anyway, but if you don't try in the first place, you failed already.
So I like what Ben just responded with, and that he can't stand it when people say to him, like, when he's leaving, stay safe, and he likes to come back with, take risks.
Take risks. Yeah.
And I mean, so sitting on
but then you get people who are going to put a spin on everything, and they think take risks means skydiving and taking drugs and doing, like, driving with your eyes closed, like taking stupid risks. And then so they just equate taking any risk to taking a stupid risk, and then they say, oh, can't ever take any risks. But you have to take risks to do anything.
Well, your whole life is a risk. Waking up in the morning, like, getting out of bed is risky. Staying in bed is risky.
What percentage of people think like me?
I don't know. Maybe 0.5%.
Dude, I don't know.
It could be 1%.
Out of all the people I know, I don't know. It's not.
So,
and
like,
sometimes I think maybe I'm just insane.
So like, coming from the other side of it, because, like, I would say that my mentality probably leans more towards being afraid of things versus, like, yours of, like,
are you still afraid of the dark?
risks. Oh yeah. I'm working on it, but, like, take little steps.
No, you're a lot better now.
Than
I remember when you first moved into my house in Vermont, you would not go outside at night.
Yeah, no.
It was like absolutely no.
Yeah.
Yeah. You were like in the room with the light. You would not even go in the other room because there was no light in there.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
Now I can walk down the wharf to where the houseboat was, talking to myself with a flashlight. And I'm running. Basically.
Yeah. I remember, like, when you first moved to my place off grid, and you had a job where you came home at night, and at first you would just get me to walk all the way down the mountain and walk up with you, and finally one day I was like, look, just start walking up, I'll meet you halfway. And I came, but by the time I actually got to you, you'd only gotten like a quarter of the way up.
Yeah, I know.
But you were just like, you had your phone and you were talking.
I was talking
and
to Celeste,
actually.
I remember this.
Frantically
I totally
talking and just like.
No, it's because, like, it's this thing inside of my body that, like, seizes up, and it's like my heart rate increases, and, like, I can't breathe, and it's just like, it's difficult. I totally remember that experience too, because I called Celeste.
But you are
the first
significantly
person I could
better
think
now.
of, and she got me all the way up to the pond, and it wasn't even dark yet. And the thing that stopped me was
going into the trees, because it's darker in the trees. Yeah. For me, I like being in the dark.
Yeah, I don't.
Like, I would much rather be in the dark than in the light.
Now,
because then people can't see me, and I can do what I want without people. Of course, here I am making
Right.
YouTube videos.
Interestingly enough, in my house now,
Yeah.
like I very rarely have a light on at nighttime if I have to go
Yeah.
up and down the stairs to go do something. Like I don't need the light. Like I can
Yeah.
see things now pretty well.
You
I
also
remember-
don't throw up on the boat anymore.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
I know.
great.
So
Here's a question.
oh, okay. Wait, let's just make sure that we got.
Oh,
Here we go. Take the Ride says, do you think humanity will diverge in two different directions, one being cyborgs and the other biological humans living off the land and utilizing discarded items from the cyborgs? That sounds like a movie.
Well,
That's like a synopsis to a movie I've seen.
yeah.
Was that like,
I don't know.
I'm thinking of a movie with a kid.
I just thought of Johnny Mnemonic for a minute.
Oh.
They had the low techs.
Yeah, that too. That was the
The
one with
low text had a
with
dolphin
Ice-T in it, right?
Yeah, Ice-T. I love Ice-T. He's
I like him.
hilarious.
He's hilarious.
He's like so melodramatic all the time.
He's great. I wonder if
Yeah.
he's like that in real life. Do you think he is?
I don't know. I bet he's hilarious. Anyway, yeah, I mean that's a possibility.
Yeah.
Like having divergent, like yeah, I mean we could end up with divergent species. I don't know what's gonna happen, man.
Yeah.
The future of humanity is just like there's so many ways it could go. We could just like totally wipe ourselves out. We could end up diverging. You know, I think the best thing that could happen to humans in general is for people to diverge more, stop being so global, and start having
More
like,
unique, niche.
more
communities.
branches of evolution. Because the thing is, if we all become the same, you know, it's just like the bananas that, you know, when you
Are
have
now
only
susceptible to all.
yeah, you
of
only
the-
have one type of banana, it gets one sickness, they're all wiped out, and they have to switch to a totally different type of bananas. Like if all people keep converging more into the same thing, like one thing could kill us all. But if you have different types of people living in different ways in different communities with different biology and different DNA and stuff, you could have something that could completely wipe out several sections of humanity,
Mama,
and
what
other
is
people
1
would
plus
be
1?
okay.
What is 1 plus 1?
So in just in
What's
terms
that?
of
That's 3 plus
survival, it would be better
What
for
does that mean?
humans to
1.
diverge
Count
more.
3 and add 1. Oh, wait.
Oh,
So
okay, go ahead.
I
What are you
wanted to
doing?
mention something about evolution and something I learned about the dinosaurs recently, like yesterday.
What's funny about the dinosaurs? What was it, like hundreds, millions of years
Can I
or
tell
whatever?
you my
They
thing?
never made like
No,
a hammer.
I want to tell you my thing.
Or maybe they did, and they all
Before I
got
forget
melted
what
by
I'm trying
lava.
to
Okay,
say.
go. Okay.
So apparently they weren't wiped out by this giant asteroid like
They
everybody
left in a
thinks.
spaceship.
They did.
What were you gonna say?
Okay.
That's what happened in my video game, the
I
first one.
know.
Cool.
So the
That's not a huge
reason that
secret.
they became extinct was due to volcanic activity.
More specifically?
Like the volcanoes like erupted a ton or big ones or whatever, and it caused
Big ones
carbon
erupted.
dioxide to like increase in the
Actually-
atmosphere, which
Yeah.
basically killed them.
Yeah.
The asteroid didn't help, but that was only one time that happened to line up.
Yeah.
But all the other times they've done a bunch of research and figured out that it was the big extinction, whatever they're called, the mass
Yeah.
extinctions, the 5 of them that have happened were because of volcanism or whatever.
The Vulcans came.
Yeah, they did.
They're like, nah, we don't like these dinosaurs. My fingers.
For
Come on,
real.
I can do it this one.
For real.
Let's get rid of those dinosaurs. We want more creatures who look more like us.
Edward Wilmoth would like to stop by for a visit.
Ed. All right.
Come on by.
Um.
I think that might be Ed and Mila.
Oh, is that Ed?
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, dude. Ed, come by. I messaged Neela.
Yeah. What are
Assuming
you
this
gonna
is
do,
Ed
man?
and Neela.
Well,
Love
Mama,
to see
can
you.
help me?
yeah, totally.
I can't right now, buddy, but here, it's 4. You gotta count 4 cupcakes. Hold on.
He's reading cupcakes.
Okay, go
I'm
back
sure
into
you've
it.
been asked this
It's
before.
this one.
Deshane is being fired right now. But what do you think of Earthships? Oh man, don't get me started on.
No, we're moving
Mike
on from
Reynolds.
Earth ships. Sorry.
No, I'm going to talk about Mike Reynolds a little bit
For how many minutes?
for like 1 minute. I'll
Can I
try to
time
make
you?
it fast.
Here we
Why
go.
can't I talk about it? This is a big thing. So there's this movie called Garbage Warrior about Mike Reynolds and the Earthships and all that stuff. Totally worth watching. It's a really good movie. early morning, the ending is so depressing. Like the second half of the movie is just, he just gets bogged down by government regulations and stuff. It is so frustrating to watch. But the beginning is just amazing. It's doing all this experimental buildings and stuff. Okay, my thing on the Earthships is that they started out with this guy doing all these experimental houses and, you know, figuring out like really cool stuff, like how to build cool houses that, you know, grow food and, you know, do whatever to keep the temperature right. You know, they're just very efficiently made houses that work really well. And he basically got shut down by the government because he was making communities of houses that were super cool. And he had to fight and fight and fight and waste so much time and energy, and finally got permission, you know, sort of like permits. What's it called when you building permits, like for an Earthship, like a specific thing, which is not the point of them. Like the original point was that they're experimental. You could try new things. It's not like a set thing. Mike Reynolds, he was in New Mexico.
Okay, yeah. I was just making sure we're talking about the same.
Anyway, the Earthships are cool, but they lost a lot of the thing, like a lot of the experimental, the evolution of changing them as you go by freaking regulations. So now they've become, you know, more accepted by mass culture. However, it's like a watered down, crappy version of it that's been accepted. And that's what keeps happening. It once won anything. But Mike Reynolds seems like a super cool dude. I've never actually met him though.
So
you had a question about creativity and stupid people.
So actually that brings me the whole concept of evolving building techniques or whatnot brings me to the question about creativity and humans and intelligence levels, like that we were talking about this morning. And do you think that people are born with like an innate sense or ability or skill to be creative, or do you think it's something that and so yes being the answer.
So yeah, people are born with like an imagination,
right? The ability to create,
which is probably our most uniquely human characteristic, actually.
Okay, and so that being said, do you think intelligence level plays a part in a person's ability to be more or less creative, or do you think everybody starts out with like the same creative ability?
No, everyone doesn't start out. Okay, the whole like everyone is created equal doesn't mean that everyone's created the same. Like people have more like greater or lower abilities and stuff. I mean, everyone should have the same rights. You know, in terms of that, everyone should be equal. But
bring here.
Everyone is not born with the same smarts and stuff. But in the Adventure Builders Club, in the Adventure Builders Club, imagination is like a combination of mind and spirit. Because if you just like come up with ideas without using your mind and without figuring out how they fit into reality, you can come up with like all kinds of crazy ideas that just don't work. They're not useful for anything. And you know, you're just focusing on your. What are you guys doing?
Sorry, he's doing math.
All right, he's doing math. So just using your mind, you know, you can do math and logical things like that. And you know, just using your spirit, you can, you know, emotionally come up with, you know, things that don't conform to anything else. Like that's where you can get your new ideas. When you combine them, you can come up with new ideas that actually fit into reality in some way. It's sort of like your mind has this puzzle in it, and you put all these puzzle pieces in that make sense, that like kind of paint a picture of the world, so that you have an idea of how things work and stuff. And when you use your imagination, it's sort of like going into the unknown, into this outer space, black void or whatever, and finding puzzle pieces. And there's just all these puzzle pieces.
How many are there?
But you have to figure out which puzzle pieces can actually fit into reality and be usable. So that's like whenever I'm trying to design some new thing I've never seen before, and I'm trying to figure out how to make it work for real, you know, I'm trying to come up with ideas in my imagination that can actually become a thing that works in real life. So yeah, I mean, to have your imagination work, you have to have you have to have like intelligence and logic and stuff, and also that like spiritual like floofiness. Yep. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah.
You didn't pay attention to that.
I
You're
mean,
doing that.
sorry.
0.
All right.
So it says
In the
put
occult,
5
imagination
cubes
is
on
mentioned
the
as
grid.
magic.
Add
Them
0
ruling
more
us laws
cubes.
and contracts
Count the
is
cubes in
their
the grid.
occult concept of society or sorcery. I like that mind spirit explanation. That's what I was getting at in our previous conversation.
He's
that's
talking about
done.
what we were talking about last night. That's what he was trying to express in that conversation. So wait, what is this here that H. Wright is saying? In the occult, imagination is mentioned as magic and them ruling us, laws and contracts. Is there a occult concept of sorcery?
Yeah, magic. I mean, if you
Depending-
go, yeah, I don't know.
So Ben says 100% imagination and creativity are a big part of what makes us human and different from animals.
Yeah, apparently we're the only primates who can imagine something that we've never seen.
Oh,
So they did some experiments where they had like monkeys and gorillas or whatever, and they're trying to see if they could recognize like a green bird, for example, because it's something they've never seen. Or I don't remember what the experiment was, but they're like somehow they couldn't imagine a green bird until they saw one.
Playing.
But a human being, like I can say bird, you see a bird, purple polka dotted green bird. You see a green bird with purple polka dots on it. Now we can replace its wings with turtles. And now you can see a bird with turtles for wings. And 20 different people would have 20 different pictures of what this thing is, all coming from their imagination. And apparently we're, as far as, I mean, I haven't done all the research on this or anything, but as far as I know, we're the only ones that can do that have that imagination. And can come up with something we've never seen before, which is why humans are able to make, garbage like this.
Oh, gentle.
And gentle and like this, like no other animal. Dinosaurs were around for 100 million years. They never made these.
So
unless they did and they got lost in the lava.
It's possible.
It's possible.
So this,
or they took them with them on the spaceships.
There's another article that I read where they recently discovered I don't want to say, it's a hominid species, hominin, whatever, like a human.
Yeah, hominid. Yeah, we got a hominid species.
Anyway, that's not the important thing. The important thing is
humanoids. Yeah.
Humanoid.
Yeah.
And it had a brain the size of an orange. Mm-hmm. But they also discovered that they were able to do a lot of the creative things that we have connected to having a large brain. Mm-hmm. So they were able to do all the same things, having the small orange-sized brain.
Yeah. I'd buy that. I found that if I organize my brain correctly, I don't strain my brain at all doing what other people think is very difficult.
So there's that.
Yeah.
Also, in regards to the dinosaurs having been creative or not creative or whatever, I mean, there's a chance that we just haven't been able to find it.
Well, yeah, it might have been all burned up in the lava, or maybe they just left in their spaceships and took all their little cubes of titanium and everything.
Yeah. And I don't know if we brought.
But the thing is, there should be some sign. Like we found friggin' 100 million year old footprints, right?
Right.
But no pencil.
Well, what
fossils. Not that they would make a pencil, but they make something that did not occur in nature. Like we haven't found anything like that.
Right, but okay. So talking about that,
which makes it seem like kind of crazy that that we got this imagination. Like that is, it's like winning the lottery.
Right. So out of all the things that we have currently, millions of years from now, what will actually be left of those things besides plastic remnants?
Oh God.
Like
we're gonna be known as the garbage age. There's just gonna be this layer, like people will, or whatever monsters will drill down into the earth, take these cores and say, oh, this is a history of the planet. Here we've got a layer that's like 400 million years. Here's the plastic layer. This was the humans, they called themselves. We know this because in the plastic we can read words that they call themselves the humans. Yeah, we're gonna be called the garbage age. Oh, it's so horrible.
Jaimie, what will you do with your remaining time? What's your main objective?
My remaining time in my life,
I'm guessing that's what he means.
just do my best. Make the world around me as good as I can. Show the best example I can to the people around me, particularly my own children, and be the best person I can be.
Oh, I think a cult might be a movie
Oh,
or something because
in the occult. Nice.
he says it's not
The
easy to
occult?
understand. You have to see it for yourself if you have time left to
Oh,
watch.
the occult. Oh, well, let's watch it.
Okay.
Maybe.
Ben says if your ideas are creative and novel, but they aren't good solutions, it is easy to get shot down and discouraged by other adults. Okay, because he was saying that it's easier to crush creativity in children when their spirit is strong, but their mind is weak.
Yeah, totally. And that's what we do. That's what school is for. Like, that's the main point of school right now, which is so frustrating. Like, here's the thing. This is the reason not many people think like me. It's because it's unbelievably frustrating to take away the veil and look at what's actually going on. Because it is, oh my God, like, just kids are being crushed. Like, when I think about, like, now that I see what's going on in the world and how things happen, I look at my own childhood and the schooling that I had, and I'm just like, it was so horrible. Like, they were just stripping the imagination out of people, which is the single most valuable thing we have, is your imagination, because that's the thing that can solve problems. That's the thing that can change the world, you know. And they're just like, hey, kids, sit in your chair, don't move, do what you're told. No imagination. Oh, you're doing something, or I remember I was sitting in a math class one day. I'd finished my assignment like way before I was, I had all this extra time. So I was drawing pictures of monsters. My math teacher got angry at me. I got yelled at for drawing pictures of monsters in math class, even though I'd answered all the questions correctly and I was already done.
At least you're sitting there quietly and not being a destructive maniac.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I was like, oh God.
So I'm
if I went back through school right now, I think I would have a lot. Actually, by the time I got to high school, I started fighting with teachers. Yeah.
I'm ready to go eat.
Yeah.
It's almost 1.
Well, let's go eat some food.
Great.
Yeah. Oh, I guess we're going. We were supposed to have some kind of outro. Someone was saying we should have an intro and an outro.
Come here.
So, it's a Jaimo show, Jaimie got super frustrated today.
He fired Deshana and called her bad names.
Deshana got fired today, but she did her job okay after that.
Did her job anyway.
All right, see you later, dudes. Garbage age, yeah, garbage age. No, it's just so bad. Maybe we can fix it. Let's fix it.
Ed, come visit us.
Yeah, Ed, come over.
Ben says it's even kind of accidental in that there is so much to teach children about. Educators forget the value of fostering creativity and novel solutions. I just want to say, actually, before we go, about teaching children.
Most of their time should be learning on their own.
Right.
Just doing stuff. Whatever.
There's this guy. His name is Gategno. He's from Egypt.
I'm sure you're saying it right.
Anyway,
Deshana mispronounced names.
He encourages this way of teaching called the silent way, if anybody's interested, and that's kind of how I try to teach our kids, and that's where you only give them the information that they could absolutely not figure out on their own. So,
Mama,
like,
can you help me
knowing
with
the
this?
names of things.
Mama.
Like the numbers.
Right.
Jaimie, can you help me
Anyway,
with
bye.
this?
Yeah, what do you want? What do you got?
Help doing this.
What is it? 3 plus 2? What's 3 plus
He
2?
needs to know